Can we talk a minute about the difference between inductive and deductive preaching?
Yeah, so inductive and deductive is a way, general idea, and it flows into your outline because it determines how you communicate that sermon, that text. So a deductive sermon is basically where you come out and you say, hey, here's the big idea. Here's what the text is teaching. Here's this principle I want you to understand. And then the rest of the message can either show how that's true from Scripture or say, now that that's true, here's some points that automatically follow from that. And so it depends on your audience. Maybe you come up and you say, if you have an audience full of Christians, you might say, hey, is God really loving? We'll find out. You probably don't want to do that because your audience is like, yeah, we know God is love. Maybe you could say, hey, God is love. Here's how that's going to change your life. But if you're with people who are maybe new to Christianity or not Christians, you might come up and you do an inductive message. And an inductive message says, hey, here's a problem, here's an issue, and let's go to Scripture and figure out the answer. So you might say, hey, maybe you feel absolutely alone in life. You feel like nobody's looking out for you. And you work through how God is a God of love. And that comes to fruition at the end of your message.
I feel like when I listen to Andy Stanley messages, I feel like he utilizes inductive preaching a lot.
Yeah.
There was one of the great deductive preachers that I grew up under. His name was Howard Burroughs, and he was just a master at this, right? He would sort of come out with his main point and his main thesis of the message, and then he would start going through the message, and you would begin to think, well, maybe he got lost.
Yeah.
And at the end of his message, he would sort of bring it all full circle. Everything was sort of pulled together at the end. And you're like, man, you sly dog. Like you had us the whole time, right? Mm-hmm. He was a great deductive communicator. And I think Andy Stanley, he utilizes inductive preaching a lot. Mm-hmm. In fact, you see it, and we'll talk about here in a second, the different outlines you can use. Andy Stanley's outline, I think, is a great example of inductive format.
No, and that makes complete sense, and it's very true when you listen to his messages.